the main thing about this film for me was that I just felt like if I was going to make the film, I might as well go all in. Like I have to be completely honest. And I'm not sure my family was on board with that at all times, but they got there. And I think that, I think you get out what you put in.
Hey everyone, this is David Starr from Watch or Pass, and today I'm joined by Edwin P. Stevens, the creator of the documentary film Alice is Still Dead, which is coming to digital and VOD on November 5th, 2021. We're going to talk to him in just a second, but first let's check out the trailer, and while you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. It helps me out a lot. Thank you.
Alice was fantastic at so many things.
Hi, Alice.
I used to be able to watch the news like a normal person. But that changed when my family became the headline.
911, ready to emergency. 2 neighbors are shot. There's blood splattered everywhere.
My little sister Alice was murdered. And I've been trying to figure out how to live in this new reality.
She was very loving, she was very caring, and she was fearless.
She wanted to have fun. We got worried that she was going to get into trouble.
She didn't worry about what you thought of her. She was just giving you who she is.
The picture that I had in my head of the life Alice was living was not the same as the reality. Her death was entirely preventable.
They must have been doing something they shouldn't have been doing. That's what I initially went to.
That was pretty disturbing, hearing the witnesses and the stories.
It was a terrible feeling that day.
I've never seen such a waste of potential.
Just really want to know what's going to happen with this trial. I don't want to forget her. I also don't want to feel like this forever.
Hey Edwin.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So thanks
Sounds
so much
great.
for joining me. This is Edwin P. Stevens, the creator of Alice is Still Dead, which is a documentary about the murder of his sister. It's available digitally and on VOD on November 5th, 2021. So it's out now. It's available. It is a tough film to watch. It is heartbreaking what happens, but it also is a very interesting kind of journey through a family's grief. And, I guess the justice that they got and whether or not that justice is makes up for the crime is an open question, but it shows kind of the whole journey that this family took to kind of understand what happened and how to kind of cope with it. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So you kind of get into this in the film, but it felt like there was an internal need for you to kind of make this film. I don't know if it was just to kind of honor your sister, understand what happened, just kind of get something out there off of your chest. Like what was kind of the journey with you for how that caused you to then need to make this film?
Well, she was murdered in 2013, and no one was even arrested until about the anniversary of her death a year later. So there was a lot of waiting around to find, and a lot of anxiety, just feeling helpless and hopeless, just like, can I do anything to help? Is there anything I can do? Can I do anything to help myself? And I'd kind of exhausted therapy as an option. That didn't seem to be making the progress that I wanted it to, although helpful. It was not, it wasn't really getting to the meat of the situation. And it was something where, another year passed before we ever got the first trial, and there was just a lot of waiting around. And I just felt like I had to do something proactive for myself, really. It started as just something I wanted to make for myself to honor Alice's memory. And then as it evolved, it became something where, maybe other people, if I really, went out of my way to interview family and friends and people that are all going through this grief together, that maybe it could become a bigger thing that wasn't just a nice project for me and my family to remember Alice by. I think it relates to everyone, because unfortunately, if you live long enough, we're all going to go through grief. Someone's going to pass and we're going to have to deal with it, or a friend of yours is going to have to deal with it. And it's, there are very few films that attack this kind of subject matter because it's difficult. No one wants to talk about that. We all want to talk about the true crime thing and the mystery, and it's very exciting, but there seemed to be a void in the, behind the curtain and looking at the families that are affected.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned. I hadn't really thought about that until now, but like you're right. Like a lot of times you'll get these films made where it's like, what happened? Like where, where did the investigation go wrong? But this one, you kind of know exactly what happened, but it's still it feels hollow because the crime itself was just so senseless, and like you and your family trying to then move on when this ridiculous, I don't know, ridiculous is the wrong word. This senseless murder happened. It must have just been tough to do.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I started making a film to show everyone, when something like this happens to someone and you never expected that to happen, you think, were they into drugs? Were they part of gang activity? Were they doing some shady things that, they were asking for trouble, right? And unfortunately, in this situation, or fortunately for her memory, she wasn't. She was just an innocent bystander. And I wanted to. That's another reason why I wanted to make the film, is to make sure everyone knew that, because we all kind of hypothesized, even myself at the beginning, like, what was she into that I didn't know about? And that's definitely another reason that the film was made. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to if you're trying to, I don't know, rationalize the situation, or you don't, no one wants anyone to die, but then if they do, you're like, oh well, I don't know, karma, whatever you want to call it, is would help make it make sense to you. But the fact that it just was a random situation just must have been, I don't know if that makes it worse. It probably must have made it worse and better. Like you mentioned, it's better for her memory, but just worse for the overall situation.
I think it was worse for me, because that could happen to anyone, right? And how safe do I feel now knowing that that can happen to me? It happened to my sister, who had nothing to do with anything. And especially now that I'm raising kids in this world, it was just very, very scary. Like, who can I trust? And do I always have to be vigilant and on alert? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But making the film and going through the whole process, and then it did help to like ease those tensions.
Now, I like that you mentioned as a start therapy for kind of how you were trying to get through this, and then that helped to an extent. But it does feel like this film also was therapy for both you and your family, just kind of to confront these emotions and these memories head on, and also to make record these memories while they're still fresh and while you still have them. Like, it felt like a cathartic, maybe, or at least just an important activity for the entire family to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, certainly for me, it was cathartic. I got to meet a bunch of people I never even met before that were in Alice's life. She lived on the other side of the country from me. So I didn't know everyone in her life, and I got to experience learning some new memories about her, which was like creating new memories. It was really nice. And in that way, it was very therapeutic. And it was also relief for me to know that she was the person that I thought she was, that we're talking about the speculation of was she into something else, No, it was nice to know that she was the person that I grew up with, and she was until her death. Yeah. And the main thing about this film for me was that I just felt like, if I was going to make the film, I might as well go all in. Like, I have to be completely honest. And I'm not sure my family was on board with that at all times, but they got there. And I think that, I think you get out what you put in, right? If you can give yourself completely to it and you don't leave any doors locked. And I felt like, I had to be 100% honest, and that because I gave so much in that initial, decision to be 100% honest was so difficult. But then after that, I got more benefits because I didn't hold back.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I guess, again, going back to the situation, this is one where, Alice did seem like a good person who, I don't know, was in the wrong situation. But I do think that you do have to be 100% honest, because you don't want to you don't want to have people question it. Like, you don't know the people who are watching this video, and you're trying to make a connection with them. And the only way to do that is to be authentic. And I think that, it comes across in the entire family and the friends when they're talking about Alice, that this is just, this is raw and it's real, and there's no kind of sugarcoating here.
Good. Thank you. I think that has its benefits and its cons, but hopefully, I mean, for the purpose of the film and figuring out how to deal with grief, I think that it's important.
Definitely. And I mentioned it a couple of times. This does feel like a film that is part kind of dedication to Alice, and then also part need therapy or kind of grief confronting for your family. Was there any, I guess, distinct, or was there any thought that that's what this was going to be when you started making it? Or were you just like, I need to start just making a film about Alice, and then kind of along the way, the family kind of confronted these issues?
Exactly. It kind of evolved. it started out as, I wanted to make a short film in her memory and to let everyone know that, she was not involved in anything shady, that they could think that she was, asking for risks. And just for myself, just putting together the pieces, and, my brain was fragmented at the time. I was trying to figure out how I felt about everything. But then it evolved, and I realized that this could be something that, other people who are grieving and dealing with loss, or helping someone deal with a loss, that they could take, look at an intimate portrait of a family's grief and think, oh, this relates to my situation. And more importantly, I think, for people who are experiencing the grief themselves, like realizing that it's not going to change overnight, it may never change. It's going to hopefully get better, but it may, this idea of closure, I think in my case, especially or specifically, it's not possible. But my life will be different. I am changed. I'm not going to get back to who I was before that, but I can definitely slowly and deliberately and patiently let myself grow and change and become the person that I'm going to be now. And that's okay. And I think that's something that, especially in men, we have a really hard time being honest and open and letting these things out. I would love to have compartmentalized this, and that was my go-to before this, and that was not possible. It was too big of a grief this time around. So I think that hopefully that's something that people can see, that, oh, wow, being honest and open about how difficult it was reaped benefits in the long run, even though it was difficult in the short term. And I hope that people can take that from the film as well.
Yeah, definitely. I hope so too. I think you're right. Kind of men are meant, or told by society to kind of hold it in and be strong, but it's that sometimes that's not the right thing. Like sometimes you do just have to kind of be honest and confront like this horrible event that happened.
Yeah.
And one thing that I was very impressed with, also, not shocked is the right word, but I was surprised that your whole family was involved in this, like your wife, your children. And I think that it definitely helped the film to kind of show just what all was left behind when Alice was killed. How was that discussion? Like, was it tough to kind of break that fourth wall? I mean, you're already kind of doing that with the film, but was it tough to kind of break that safety net and get everyone involved, or was this something that you just kind of agreed to?
I think for certain people it was difficult. Yes. For me, I kind of signed my own waiver and was like, this is how I'm going to be. Whether it was difficult or not, I signed up for it. So I'm going to have to do it. But convincing others and making sure that they trusted me enough to show them, to show honesty, but in a way that wasn't going to ruin their reputation or something, that was maybe a tough pill to swallow. My mom and I have just talked about it to death for so long. So it is nice to get it out there so that other people can kind of see how it feels, and also to tell Alice's story. So that was very important. And I think it was a little bit easier to get her on board. My brother, someone who's kind of on the opposite side, he's very analytical. So he was not emotional, wanting to talk about things, and he was a little harder to get on board, but he plays a really important role in the film because he was the one who talked to the police. So he had his role too. He had all the details, and he does have emotional moments too. It's kind of unavoidable, right? But yes, it was interesting to try to get family members involved at times. Yeah.
And the film timing is interesting. It kind of starts with this journey of Alice's life, and then it goes into the trial. Is that how the filming happened, or was there did the trial happen and then you kind of went back and remembered, or did it just kind of, the timing worked out that you felt this need to do something, you started doing it, and then the trial happened because that takes time?
A little bit of both. I was not planning to film the trial. I just thought, this is going to be way too raw. I don't know how any of us are going to react. What if the verdict doesn't go the way we want? Then what is going to happen? But eventually, it became obvious, okay, if we can get permission to film this, why not film it and then see if we can use it, right? And luckily, I had this fantastic editor on board. Her name's Meredith Mantic. She's done a lot of work with me, but this is her masterpiece, I think, because she really took hundreds of hours of footage, and I tried to cut it myself in the first place just because it's personal to me. I wanted to have complete control, and that was the wrong way to do it. How do how do you put someone's whole existence into a 90-minute feature, right? Especially someone that I'm so passionate about. So she was really important to the process and the timeline and figuring out, okay, well, the story is best shaped if we go back and forth between these things, and then the trial is the big climax at the end, and then we see, does it fix things? Does it help?
Yeah, and hats off to her, because that I do think that the film structure was very well done, especially kind of starting off. I loved seeing Alice at the start, just kind of her playful personality, and kind of hearing the stories of you two, the secret language that she spoke. I guess the gibberish that she spoke that you understood was adorable, and I thought that was a great way to start.
Yeah, we had a unique connection for sure.
And then I kind of thought that this film was almost like two films, because you have kind of the biography of Alice and the crime, and then you had the trial. The trial was kind of its own separate entity, which I thought was interesting, because it feels like you go through this journey and then you have the trial on top of it. So I think it was structured, in the right way to tell the story.
Awesome. That's good to hear. That was something that when thinking about filming the trial, it became apparent. I thought, I don't know if I've seen a film where you're filming an actual trial, but it's not about the trial as much as it's about the family's reaction to the trial, right? I mean, the true crime aspect and the mystery of how it's going to unfold is present, but really, it's kind of secondary to what it's like to be in the shoes of the family, as you're just praying that the verdict goes the way you want it to. And there's so many different technicalities and things, like certain evidence was not allowed to be released, even though it was damning and true, because of the legal process, right? And just how frustrating it is to sit in that courtroom and have things get thrown out that are very relevant, and again, just the anxiety of going through that. I think that's kind of a unique approach this film has.
Which I think it's important, because you kind of hear about that type of stuff, but I think, Hollywood tends to have a very different take on the legal process, and this is a realistic, for obvious reasons, like a realistic look at how that kind of a trial can go, and some of the road bumps that you can hit along the way, and your family's reaction to it, I thought was, that's one of those kind of like once in a lifetime kind of things. You have to catch them in the moment to really get the raw reaction, and I think that was an important piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's just interesting, because in Law and Order or whatever other, crime court docu kind of court drama kind of situation, you think, everyone's so invested, but it's funny, the defense and the prosecutor walk in and, they're friends. They know each other. They've been in the court against each other all the time. They're exchanging pleasantries and laughing and joking. And then the trial starts, and all of a sudden it's super serious. And it's just interesting to think about how desensitized you can get, because with the family, we're like appalled at that, right? That like, oh my gosh, this is life and death for us. Why are they joking around beforehand? But, if you go to your job every single day, of course, it's going to feel normal. It's going to be normalized. And that was super eye-opening.
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to, because it's, like you can't feel, I mean, you always want your attorney to feel it the same way that you feel it, but if they put everything into every trial, then yeah, like you said, you can't go on, because you're going to have some trials where you, in your heart, you probably know the person is guilty, but some technicality gets them off, or some defense aspect gets them off, and probably the other way around. You're going to have people that in your heart are innocent, and then just the way that the trial works, people are going to get convicted. And so I think you probably have to turn it off, or at least have some sort of layer of protection in there.
I think you're right. And I think if, the lawyers wore their emotions on their sleeve all the time, that they wouldn't be very good at their jobs. Right. So yeah, I think you're 100% right.
So going into some of the specifics of the film that I really liked, or I thought was interesting, I really loved Alice's Burden Rock. I thought that was a sweet, a sweet thing. It showed kind of, her introspective nature with some of the things that are written on there, her artistic nature, some of her playful nature with some of the word phrases on there. I guess, do you have something similar? It seems like a very interesting kind of unique thing that Alice had that I love seeing.
That was interesting. Yeah, she went to this wilderness kind of rehabilitation camp for teenagers who just had gotten into a little bit of trouble. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things they had to do, is they had to pick a rock and they had to write all the things that were bothering them and weighing them down on this rock. And then the goal was, after their time there, a month, 2 months, depending on, exactly why they were there and how much they progressed, they were supposed to get rid of the rock at the end and have that weight lifted, right? They carry it with them everywhere in their backpacks, and then they throw it off the cliff at the end. And the interesting thing was that Alice didn't feel the need to get rid of it. She thought, I've made a lot of progress, but these are still weighing on me. It's just, I can't let go of it yet. These things are still bothering me. So, yeah, I think it's interesting that she was honest and open and put these very personal things written on the rock. And I think that they're good things that she, like you said, was introspective and insightful about what was bothering her. But it is sad to me that it is never lifted enough for her to feel like she could let go of it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe there's a very wonderfully done spoilers, I guess, if you can have spoilers in a documentary, scene at the end where you release some of her ashes. I think that maybe her ashes could have been your burden rock, like something that you had to kind of process through to then be able to actually I don't know, release or let go, or at least move on from. So
yeah, you're 100% right. That totally was, like the representation, the physical representation of the burden I was carrying. And it, it was, their ashes were put in a special place. So I feel like I can go back there and kind of experience and be with Alice if I need to. But I'm not carrying them with me all the time. Exactly.
And is that a special place that you both kind of knew? I mean, it was a beautiful setting. I don't think it was actually said where it was, which is probably by design, but was that like a special place to both of you, or something that where you have gone to maybe kind of contemplate in the wake of this event?
Yeah, my family for generations had this cabin on an island off the coast of Maine, and we spent all of our summers there. So, kind of the uncut, uncensored time together. There's no school, there's no activities. We're just together on this island, creating adventures for ourselves. And so, yeah, it was nice. A lot of family significance there, and so many memories with Alice. It was nice to have that be the place that the ashes were scattered.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and does seem like a place that she would probably want to end up. So I guess that's perfect.
Yeah.
One thing that I was kind of shocked by, and then but I do think it's an important scene, is you showed the autopsy photos, kind of the unredacted autopsy photos, which when I saw that, I was like, oh my God. But then it really kind of drives home how sad this was and how innocent she was and how brutal this was. I mean, was that tough to come to that decision? I imagine they were horrible to look at, and they probably still are to you, but was that a tough decision to make, or did you kind of, as you said earlier, we kind of had to go all in 100% on this and make it very real, and that is a very real aspect of this whole situation?
Yes, that was very difficult. That was a lot of conversations with Meredith and Joe, who shot a lot of the film with me, Joe Raffa, about, it's one thing to talk about it, and it's one thing to describe how brutal the violence was, but to see the aftermath really makes a visual impact that, I was fighting against showing it, but they were totally right. I mean, really, once you see like the transformation from Alice's pictures and videos to what happened to her, it's a whole different level of empathy and sympathy and pain, and seeing the physical manifestation of that is really brutal.
Yeah, I think in our society and our media, for good reasons, and that you tend to shy away from that. You'll see like a story about the event, and you showed some of the news reports, and you'll see like the house, and then maybe there will be like a little bit of a blood stain, and there's police tape, and you're kind of pushed away from it. And so seeing that kind of up close and personal was shocking, but I think also very important.
Yeah, it's another question too, is like, we all love true crime docs, and me too, I get it. And one thing I was trying to figure out, we're desensitized to violence. We hear about it all the time in these true crime shows, and we're not as affected by it as we should be. So how do we shatter that wall and really break through and show, well, here's what's left behind after all this exciting talk about the crime? And I think that's, it's a sombering moment, but it's important.
And another scene I really love, I thought was a very artistic scene, is at the very start, you had this like wilted sunflower seed, and Alice's favorite flower is a sunflower, so it makes perfect sense to kind of frame the film. Where did you find that? Is that someplace that you had gone with her before, or was it just you need to find a place and someone knew about it and it just kind of worked out perfectly?
I had been trying to find a field of sunflowers for a while when I finally found those. And as fate would have it, I just showed up a little bit too late, so they were dying. And just by dumb luck was that like the appropriate metaphor. And I really wanted to have vibrant, glowing sunflowers, but that isn't this film. And again, just dumb luck that happened that way. But yeah, there's a few fields like that up in Northern California around San Francisco that you can Google if you'd like.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was kind of the perfect image, and yeah, I mean, it seems like a beautiful place in its prime. But I don't know, maybe it'll also look poetic when they're wilted as well. That was another very striking image. So,
thank you.
So you got the film made. I guess how did you then go about publicizing this? Was there like a festival circuit that you had? I mean, it seems like it might have been a difficult documentary to get made just because of the subject matter. So how did you kind of go about then selling this and getting this out there so people could actually experience the work?
Yeah, it wasn't something that people wanted to get on board with when it was a concept. So I just I made the film myself. I've made 5 films now, not all as director, but as a producer and a cinematographer. That's kind of my trade. And this is the chance for me to step into the director's chair because it was just so personal to me. And, if there's ever a film I'm going to be passionate about enough to direct, this was it. But yeah, finding distribution was interesting. We went to a couple festivals. A lot of festivals didn't want it. I think it was too visceral, too realistic in a lot of ways, which I totally understand. But yeah, I found, I know this sales agent who sent it to his Rolodex, and I had a lot of offers. Actually, a lot of people liked it a lot, and it was kind of, gun violence is kind of a hot topic right now, so it's a unique approach to that whole world. And it's out now, and I don't really know how it got there, but I'm glad that people will be able to see it.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the other question is, how did your family and friends, did they, I don't know, did they like the film? Would they think at least it was an accurate representation? How was their reaction? Because I imagine they probably also didn't really know how it was going to come out, because you didn't know how it was going to end. You were just kind of trying to make a project, and then the final product is probably something very different than what you thought it would be. Very true. Yes.
The premiere for it was in a theater of about 40 people at LA Doc. Doc LA is the film festival in Los Angeles, and they were great hosts. It was fantastic to be there, but 40 was about the right number, especially for the first viewing of that film, in that, it was like a very friendly audience. It was people that knew Alice and knew me and were close to the situation and knew what we had gone through, but then seeing it, visually represented it was interesting. And I mean, I was most nervous for my mother to see the film because she's in it throughout, and, not always looking like the hero, right? I mean, there are moments where she breaks down or she says things that she is being brutally honest about. And probably, if she was writing a letter, would erase that part and leave it out. So I was really nervous for her to see it, but she loved it and she doesn't want to watch it again, but she's glad that it was made and that other people will see how Alice was and what happened to her. And she's hoping, like I am, that this will be some kind of a general roadmap for others to see who are going through grief, and that they can relate to it and hopefully find a little bit of peace themselves.
Yeah, I mean, your mother definitely had some very important seeds. When she went into the storage unit and just see all this stuff that she had saved, because she, understandably, can't throw it out, and it's just kind of like that's her burden rock that she can never get rid of. And then seeing her with a birthday cake and kind of trying to celebrate her life on her birthday was another just kind of beautiful, but also just heart-wrenching scene, because you're like, this is her reality now. And so those were just important. And then also, yes, you're like, some of the comments that she made during the trial when she was raw and emotional, I think were good to show, because it just shows you just kind of how difficult that was for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And hopefully it'll encourage people to be more patient with themselves and with others, that sometimes you just have to say what you're thinking and then get it all off your chest. hopefully not offending other and hurting other people. But, sometimes the things come out, and she's, she identifies as a church-going Christian, and then it was hard for her to say some of these things, I think, aloud. But being raw and honest about how she was feeling did help her a little bit as well, I hope.
And there was a line, towards the end when I think it was her mother actually who was saying this. She was kind of going through, what does this all mean? And she essentially was like, there's still that empty table at the holidays. And that kind of triggered my thought, like, we are right now in the holidays. The film is coming out right around that time. Was that intentional? Was that just kind of how I know indie filmmaking is such a difficult process, and you just kind of release when you can. So was that just, I don't know if luck is just the timing that it was, or was that intentional to try to release it around a family time, because that is a time when people do tend to evaluate grief if they have it in their family?
That's true. Maybe it was the distributor's intention. I actually don't know about that, but I do know, we released the film 8 years to the date after the murders, and they just happened to be right before the holidays. But that was important to, it was kind of a landmark, almost a century or almost a decade now. And it's still relevant, unfortunately. The title is brutal, but it's true. Alice is still dead. And no matter what we do to try to keep her name alive, and no matter how many guilty verdicts you get, unfortunately, there is, those things help, but she is still dead. There is still that empty chair. And so it's just a reminder, unfortunately, that, it's just a sad time of year for us.
Yep, that is. But, hopefully, as you said, this can be a vehicle for others to kind of evaluate their grief and just kind of empathize or see a path out of the depression, or out of the sad place that they're in. So the film comes out, it's already out now. It came out November 5th, 2021, digitally and on VOD. You are a cinematographer, you're a filmmaker. I imagine there must be other projects. Are there other things that you're working on now to keep yourself busy, or are you just trying to kind of promote the film and get Alice's memory out there, or maybe both?
Well, we had a film come out this summer called Down East that I shot, which is very fun. It's a much different film than the documentary. It's a fiction film that takes place in Maine about crime and love and the intersection of the two. And that can be found iTunes, anywhere that you can rent or purchase films. And I also shot a film directed by Doug Prey. It's about the Vans family, the family that founded the Vans shoe company. And that one's super fun too. That isn't released yet, but it's called Never Catch Pigeons. And it's a very fun documentary about that family and how they came up and grew. And currently I'm working for a commercial company out of Phoenix called Point in Time Studios. And we're available for hire anytime. So that's what I'm currently working on. But, my features and things can be found on IMDb, or you can go to my Instagram. It's Edwin P. Stevens, and follow me along in my journeys.
Perfect. Thanks so much. I'm really glad to hear that your next projects have a very different tenor than this one, because I'm glad to hear that you're able to kind of move on and experience other things rather than having just kind of experiencing the grief over and over. So thanks so much for chatting with me. The film is Alice is Still Dead. It's available on VOD and digital, and it's a heartbreaking film, and it's a tough watch, but it is an important one. So thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Awesome. That was Edwin P. Stevens, the creator of the documentary Alice is Still Dead, which is on VOD and digital on November 5th, 2021. It's an emotional journey through a family's grief, and it's a tough film to watch, but it's a really good one. If you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.